Today on Politics Unplugged, Arizona Attorney General Kris Mayes is squaring off with President Donald Trump once again, this time in the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll speak to her. Plus, Democrats had themselves a night on Tuesday. They scored impressive wins across the country in the first big election of President Trump's second term. Our panel breaks it all down now on Politics Unplugged.
And good evening, I'm political editor Dennis Welch, and this is Politics Unplugged. Arizona Attorney General Kris Mayes was in Washington this week for arguments before the Supreme Court. She's part of a lawsuit claiming that the way President Trump has instituted his tariffs is illegal. I sat down with her to ask her about this case. Thank you for taking some time out of your day. I know you just got back from Washington, D.C. You attended the Supreme Court yesterday. You heard the arguments in the case against Donald Trump being able to unilaterally impose tariffs. I wanted to get your take on that. The general conventional wisdom and the general take today is that the Supreme Court was skeptical that the president had the power to impose these tariffs on his own without going to Congress to do this. What was your take from what you heard and saw?
Yeah, I mean, I was in the room. As you know, Arizona and Oregon are co-leading the lawsuit to fight back against these tariffs, which are taxes on the people of Arizona. And my take was that we have a really good shot at winning this case, Dennis. Obviously, I don't want to make any predictions, and you can't do that based on just on an oral argument, but I heard a majority of justices who were very skeptical that Donald Trump has the power to unilaterally, without the permission of Congress, enact these tariffs, especially under IEEPA.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I mean, Amy Coney Barrett expressed some real doubt that this was a national defense issue or something that could, I believe, threaten the industrial base of the country. I think Justice Roberts, he expressed some doubts that this, they could raise taxes. He looked at these tariffs as taxes.
Yes.
He expressed a lot of doubts there.
He asked at one point Trump's lawyer who pays for the tariffs, which I thought was a very important question to ask. And the answer is, even according to Trump's lawyer, the answer is Americans pay for these tariffs.
But let's talk a little bit, though. What if the president is struck down? The Supreme Court strikes down the president on this issue. They have made a big deal that this has been a big revenue generator. And what happens if that goes away? Have you considered that at all, that this could really leave the country fiscally shorthanded moving forward? Well,
I mean, I guess they should have thought of that before they gave a giant tax cut for billionaires in this country. I mean, that's basically what's happened here, is they gave away a huge tax cut for billionaires. In the process, they imposed basically a 17.5% national sales tax on the rest of us, on average Americans, because that's what these tariffs amount to. And yeah, it's generating billions of dollars that now need to be refunded to all the would need to be refunded to all the companies that were basically illegally charged under this illegal tariff scheme. So I don't know, would it be a hole? I guess, but it's a hole of their making, and that they could fix by undoing those tax cuts for the rich.
Mm-hmm. And again, even if the Supreme Court sides with you, this may not be the end of the story on this. There are several other avenues that the president can go down through. I don't want to go through them because it's very wonky. It's all wonky and stuff like that. Have you considered those, and any actions you plan to take if he moves forward on that?
I mean, we would certainly consider litigation if he tries to, but it would have to be an illegal move on his part. And I think the point that we're making is that it was illegal for him to do this under IEEPA, which is a law that doesn't even mention the word tariffs. Are there ways that Donald Trump could impose tariffs? Yes, there are. There are legal ways. Number one, you can go back to Congress. Number two, you can do it through several other provisions. But those are time-limited provisions. Those are provisions that also sometimes require Congress's approval. They used IEEPA because they didn't want to get Congress's approval, and they didn't want any time limits or any limits whatsoever.
Obviously, in this, you're part of this case. your staff has been looking into the effects of all this. What are you seeing? What the effects of these tariffs on Arizona? Because we do know, particularly with Mexico, largest trading partner with the state. What are we hearing from the state here on these tariffs?
Well, look, 850,000 jobs in Arizona are reliant on international trade. That's 1 out of every 5 Arizona jobs relies on trade. And so these tariffs, we know, are having a huge impact on our state, and we are hearing every day from small businesses and large businesses that are being impacted. We had one Mexican food restaurant say their input prices are going up, prices of vegetables. Then they've got to think about passing those on to consumers. I had one manufacturer here in Arizona tell me, well, their component parts are produced in Vietnam. Those are being tariffed, so they're going to have to raise prices. A beer maker here in Tempe said, well, barley or the materials that go into beer, I don't know, Dennis, you may know better than I do what goes into beer, but I drink a non-alcoholic beer. Okay. The price is going up. Those tariffs get passed on ultimately. And what small businesses especially are telling me here in Arizona is they're on the verge of bankruptcy because of these tariffs. We can't win this lawsuit soon enough, Dennis. And that is why I hope that, number one, we win this case in front of the Supreme Court and we win it quickly. We're talking about a life or death situation for businesses in Arizona.
But normally these decisions don't come out until late spring, is my understanding.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can do to petition the court to speed up a decision in this case?
Not really. I think we just have to hope that, number one, it was a good sign that they took up the case early, that they did oral arguments as early as they did, and I don't think they're going to delay. I mean, I think that I'm hoping they'll put it out in the next 3 months. I mean, again, consumers are being hit with a triple whammy of tariffs, which are tax increases, SNAP benefits being reduced, and Trump tried to eliminate them, and then the ACA health insurance price increases that this president is responsible for.
Let's move on and talk about a couple of other things. One of the numerous lawsuits you filed you have filed this year, most of them against the Trump administration. One of them is against Speaker Mike Johnson. You've been suing to force him to swear her into office, to seat her in office. It's been over a month since Grijalva won her special election to replace her father. Have you heard anything back on that, and any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think now it's been more than 6 weeks since she won that election. And we have a situation where 813,000 people in her congressional district are being taxed without representation. And she can't get down to work still. So we filed that lawsuit. And we have heard nothing from Johnson, and he still refuses to swear her in. There now is also a second representative who was just elected, this week. Who needs to be sworn in, I think, from Texas. So now we have 2. It's, we're getting impatient.
Do you have any theories as to why he has not sworn her in?
I mean, I don't think you can, look, what I personally think is that he refuses to swear her in because she has said that she'll be the final vote on the Epstein Files and discharge petition. So my guess is that's why, but it's crunch time. She's gone through a significant portion of her tenure without being able to do her job, and that is depriving the people of this state of representation. That is not acceptable, and as the top law enforcement officer of the state of Arizona, I am going to prosecute this case to try to get her seated. And I would say watch this space next week. We are going to take further action in court if he does not swear her in.
As I bring in our panel to look at last week's election results, including a remarkable win in the New York City mayor's race, when Politics Unplugged continues.
From coast to coast, Democrats had a reason to party this week after the first big election in Donald Trump's second term. This is your political roundup. In what was perhaps the most watched mayoral race in recent U.S. history, Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani scored an impressive victory in New York City. Across the Hudson River in New Jersey, Democrat Mikey Sherrill defeated Donald Trump's hand-picked candidate, Jack Ciattarelli, for governor. Sherrill won by double digits in a race that was expected to be close. Further south in Virginia, Democratic candidate Abigail Spanberger cruised to victory by 15 points while her party also expanded its majority in the state legislature. On the other side of the country, California voters passed Proposition 50, giving lawmakers permission to gerrymander the state's electoral map in favor of Democrats. And finally, Turning Point USA celebrated the recall of a Mesa City councilwoman. Julie Spilsbury is a registered Republican who committed the political sin of endorsing Donald Trump's opponent last year. Turning Point called it one of the biggest wins in America.
And there's a lot to talk about here, so let's bring in the panel. Democratic political consultant Roy Herrera and Republican Barrett Marson. Thank you guys both. Let's start real quick with you, Barrett. Just the big takeaways. It's an off-year election. There can be a tendency to overanalyze and overlook and look too closely at the results of these elections. But what are you taking away from what happened last Tuesday?
Yeah, a Democrat won in New Jersey, a Democrat won in New York City. Not really surprising. It is a little bit. Some of the margins maybe.
I was going to push back on that. The margins on this is significant, and you also got to start looking at, you've taken a look at some of the data. I mean, Hispanic voters. This was a group that Republicans were making big gains with, particularly Trump. I mean, you saw shifts with Hispanic voters on the East Coast of 50% going against the Republican Party.
That's right. I mean, my friend Barrett, I think, is oversimplifying a little bit. When you look at the wins across the country, you've got obviously, New Jersey and Virginia, but even in places like Georgia, Democrats did really well. And if you look at the margins, I think that tells us something. But underneath that, the shifts to the demographics, you have Latinos going back to Democrats like they used to prior to last election cycle, young voters going back to Democrats, even swaths of Republicans. And I think at the end of the day, my biggest takeaway is all about affordability. People being upset at the Trump administration because things are costing too much money. And as a result, they're picking the other guy, in this case, the Democrats.
And how should Republicans react?
Well, right. Republicans absolutely should be reacting to, you know what? It is affordability. It is the thing that both Biden and Harris really ignored for so long. That is what Republicans really have to focus on. And unfortunately, tariffs aren't helping that stuff, right? And gas prices are down. And that's great.
SNAP benefits going away because of the government shutdown, the ACA tax credits. And stuff like
so the Republicans for the next year must focus on affordability, making life easier for those in the middle class and on the lower rungs.
All right, let's shift our focus to some specific races here. New York City mayoral race, obviously one of the more watched mayoral races in recent history. So much so we're talking about here in Arizona. What's your takeaway from Zohran Mamdani? It was really kind of an impressive, unexpected victory heading into the year. Nobody expected Zohran Mamdani to win like this, and he won walking away.
Yeah, I mean, it was a remarkable, kind of out of nowhere victory for him. And I think there's lessons to be learned from him. Now, I will say, the Democratic Party is a big tent party. I mean, obviously there's different kinds of Democrats. New York Democrat is going to be different than an Arizona Democrat. But there's takeaways from him. One of them, I think, has to do with his authenticity. I mean, I do think that voters are looking for candidates that appear to be authentic, to be telling the truth. And we just talked about affordability. That was one of his big focuses in New York. Like, how do I make things more affordable here? Now, his solutions to that might be different than I think what an Arizona Democrat would say, but it's the same thing. People are upset on healthcare costs and housing and all that stuff, and Democrats need to be focusing on that for the next year or so, taking lessons from the conversation from Tuesday.
There's no doubt that his message on affordability really played well with voters, but when you tell voters, I'm going to give you free things, who's going to say no to that? And now his problem is going to be actually fulfilling those promises.
Was it any different than Trump a few years ago saying that we're going to build the wall and make Mexico pay for it? Essentially saying we're going to get a free wall.
People wanted the wall built anyways.
And people want rent and affordability, right?
Whether Mexico paid for it or not, actually, I don't think
I'm
that's
just saying it's the same thing. You want to attack Mamdani for this? I mean,
but the wall still got built. I don't think Mamdani can provide some of those great free things that, free bus transit.
And
things
campaigning
like
is one thing, governing's a whole new
Absolutely.
thing.
And I think it's going to be a lot. I mean, look, New York City has a crime problem. It's gone down. I'm not saying it's, worse now than the 1970s, but people still do remember the 1970s in New York. It cannot be a return to that.
All right, real quick though, too, I did want to get this question. What about the tenor of that candidate, the tone of it? I mean, what we've seen last year was a lot of anger. What we see out of the White House now is very kind of an angry tone. We're going after people, talking about locking people up. Mondani, yes, it was a hard-fought campaign, but he always had a smile on his face. In fact, he smiled so much SNL actually spoofed him because he was always smiling. He was, uplifting and upbeat. How much did this play into his success?
I think a lot. I mean, I do think that people across the board, because if you look at the new governors that are coming into New Jersey and Virginia, I mean, these are former, veterans, for example. They're all fighters to an extent, and I think that is what voters is appealing to voters. But the authenticity piece, I think, is a real thing, and I think the smiling and the honesty that he had throughout the campaign, just like some of these other Democratic candidates in their states, is what voters like. And I think the real problem that the Republicans are going to have, we're talking about this next year in affordability, is this President Trump, has shown no interest in actually doing anything that actually will drive down costs in any of these things. I mean, his focus has been on the Golden Ballroom. It's, at the White House, tariffs, attacking lawful immigrants. None of those things are going to drive down costs. So if the Democrats keep pressing that, I think they're going to do very well.
And I do want to get to this before we get to the next segment here. In Mesa, we saw the recall of sitting councilwoman Julie Spilsbury, registered Republican, and it appears that her main political sin here was she was endorsing Trump's opponents in the election last year. Turning Point USA, one of the leaders over there said this is one of the most important, biggest wins in the country on Tuesday night. What's your takeaway from this councilwoman getting recalled from office?
It is an incredibly minor win. It's a win for Turning Point, but in the grand scheme of Mesa, much less the grand scheme of Arizona or the United States, it's really meaningless. But it was a nice little win. It's not going to change anything.
The message to Republicans in Arizona,
absolutely,
right?
Yes, it
and
is.
What is that message?
And that message is, don't work with Democrats so much. All
right, we're going to take a quick break here. But when we come back, Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari takes on Speaker Mike Johnson with a stunt in the Capitol when Politics Unplugged continues. And to get more in-depth on the issues, check out the Politics Unplugged podcast this week. I'm joined by consultant DJ Quinlan to break down this week's election results. The Politics Unplugged podcast drops every Sunday evening wherever you get your podcasts. And Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari posted a photo on social media this week after her sitting at a table in the Capitol with a sign that reads, "Mike Johnson is starving families and gutting health care to cover up the Epstein Files." Changed my mind. When she tried to record a video to go along with it, it didn't go well. Check it out.
This is all very serious because people are suffering immensely right now. I have seen the suffering firsthand in my district with Americans who are struggling.
As you can see there, a staffer cranked up the TV there so it completely drowned out what the Congresswoman was saying. Let's bring the panel back in. Let's talk a little bit about that. I want to get your reaction to that. I mean, it's day 30. It was day 30-something, 36, 37 of the shutdown. When you got congressmen, congresswomen with nothing to do, you get these kinds of stunts, right?
Well, I think it was her attempt to bring more attention to what we're dealing with right now, which is the government shutdown, where families are starving. It's a fight over health care costs, things that Republicans don't want to engage in. I should also add that Republicans in the House aren't even in D.C. I mean, they haven't been in D.C. for over a month. And then also, this is all the overlay here, is that Adelita Grijalva, who was elected by Arizona voters, almost 2 months ago, still hasn't gotten her seat. And we all know why. And we believe the reason is because she would be the final signatory on the discharge position related to the release of the Epstein Files. So there's a reason this is happening.
See, I don't buy into that at all.
Really?
Once she's sworn in, whether it's today, tomorrow, next month, next year, she'll be the 218th signature. That's going to happen. He can only delay it. He cannot deny it.
Yeah, but in this time of the delay, hold on.
But the House isn't in session, so she could get sworn in today, and I do believe it's now time to swear her in. But she'll sign the petition. Well, the House isn't even in session, and I think it has to be dealt with within 7 days of them being in session. So it doesn't even matter that the 200.
But the delay has given Mike Johnson and his people time to try to change the minds of some of the Republicans who have already signed the discharge position.
And not one Republican has changed their mind, and their resolve seems to be of steel. So I'm not really concerned, but also, the Epstein Files are such a massive distraction from real things happening in this world. The shutdown is much bigger. The healthcare in this country, affordability, much more important. Remember, the Epstein stuff is really a far-right conspiracy theory, not something that's really in the mainstream.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit, because ultimately what the release of those files are about are seeking justice for the victims of Epstein. And one has to believe, like, what is the reason why they haven't been released yet? I mean, obviously, President Trump has flip-flopped on that. If there's one issue politically that I think Republicans, Democrats, and Independents agree on, is we should release these files.
I'm all for releasing them.
So for the delay in swearing her in, what else is the reason for that delay? Because they could swear her in without coming back into session. They've done that.
Right, they've done that before. And look, it is
they've already done it this year.
Right, it's well over a month. It is time to swear her in. Look, that district hasn't really been represented by a congressman for well over 2 years now. Even when Raul Grijalva was in office, he was obviously sick. He wasn't making any votes. So that office really has been vacant for a couple of years. So that whole argument of 800,000 people are being well, they kind of were for a long time anyway. But it's just time to swear her in. It's well over a month now.
All right. We tape on Friday. The show airs on Sunday. By the time it drops, the show drops, will the shutdown still be going, or are we going to be back here next week talking about day 40, 50 of the shutdown?
I think we're going to continue talking about the shutdown. I think the shutdown is going to keep going. Because going back to Tuesday's results, if the takeaway from the results were that affordability is a real issue, I mean, again, one of the central issues related to the shutdown is this question about insurance premiums and whether we're going to reduce healthcare costs for Americans. That's what the Democrats want and the Republicans don't want. So I do think, even Trump has said in his own words that Republicans are getting blamed for the shutdown. And so as a result, I think we're going to see the shutdown continue.
A problem, if you will, is, judges have stepped in and said, all right, the federal government must fund SNAP, right? Which is important. I'm not saying that's not important, but it doesn't create the pain that would push both parties. We're seeing reduced flights, reduced capacity at airports and things like that. That might start inflicting pain on regular people. This shutdown, if you don't work for the federal government, you really haven't felt. Most Arizonans haven't felt. But you end SNAP, problems at the airport, then Arizonans, Americans start feeling the pain of the shutdown, and that is what will move the parties to get a resolution.
Yeah, let's wrap on this. We saw another big endorsement in a congressional race here in Arizona. Donald Trump endorsing Sheriff Mark Lamb out in the district to replace Andy Biggs.
Put a fork in it.
Is this primary over?
Put a fork in it.
I think
it's
so,
done.
yeah. Similar to the CD1 Republican primary where he endorsed Swoboda.
Yeah, but that isn't as Republican. First of all, not as Republican. It's going to be a competitive district.
I'm talking about primary.
Right.
Yeah.
But for this district,
done.
Jay Feely and Travis Grantham, both of them should look for new careers because they're going to lose to Mark Lamb by well over 50%.
All right, we're going to have to end it right there. That is all the time we have, but be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged. Good night.